everybody, Stephanie here with the Machine Gun Nest with our newest legal update. So for this legal update, we're going to brief you about a few new things that are happening in the gun world. The first thing we want to talk about is how funny it is that David Chipman is being utterly ghosted by the White House. And the reason I bring this up is not only did our voices matter to the degree that he's not nominated, but the White House has just made him an utter pariah and they've ghosted him, and Chipman is on record complaining about this very thing. So everything that we share in these, in these legal update videos, they really, really matter, and your voice really matters. So when we provide an opportunity, whether it be through sharing a video supporting Gun Owners of America or Firearms Policy Coalition, every cent through those organizations really does affect the bottom line for our rights. Every comment you can leave, it really does matter, and this is just a really awesome, encouraging example of our democracy in action. So with that being said, let's talk about a really important issue. So we're updating you on the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen. So we haven't updated about this in a while because not too much has been happening. If you're unfamiliar with this case is set to determine if your Second Amendment right exists outside of your home. So currently in the state of New York and a few other states, like here in Maryland, we are what is called a may issue state. That means that your Second Amendment right really does not exist outside of your home, and your right to self-defense does not exist outside of your home unless what you can provide what they determine as a good and substantial reason. So as the law stands, we just don't have that right. So the last update we shared, about 25 senators, including Senator Ted Cruz, filed an amicus brief in support of our rights and our Second Amendment right, sharing that our right to defend ourselves does and should exist outside of our homes. Now, what has happened is that the Biden administration, through the Department of Justice, has just filed an amicus brief supporting their position that we do not have a right outside of our homes. And what is just fascinating about this entire case is that essentially they're saying a small centralized group of people who are arguably corrupt get to determine whose lives are worth something and whose lives aren't. If you are wealthy and well-connected, you are entitled to self-defense outside of your home. But we're just a bunch of disposable plebes and our lives are worth nothing. Again, if I'm transporting cash or making a deposit, I'm allowed to defend myself. But if I'm just out with my children, I'm worthless and not worthy of defending myself. I mean, that's just utterly insane and flies in the face of many of the leftist movements saying that all lives matter. If all lives matter, Black lives matter, any minority group matters, then those groups should have the right to self-defense outside of the home. So the Biden administration and Attorney General Merrick Garland are essentially calling for the removal of the right to bear arms from the Second Amendment, and they are arguing for what they call reasonable regulation. Now, this ambiguous language is terrifying because it has been used in many instances to prevent good and law-abiding citizens from owning some of the most commonly owned firearms here in the United States. So here's the list of the may issue states in our country: California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, here in Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and Rhode Island. So speaking of Massachusetts, that brings us to our next topic. You may or may not have heard that Smith and Wesson is relocating their headquarters from Massachusetts to Tennessee. They're going to good old Maryville, Tennessee, and they're taking 750 jobs with them. This is staggering because that's a huge job loss for that community. But Charlie Baker, the governor of Massachusetts, doesn't seem to mind. He doesn't seem to actually care about the rights of his people. You probably know that Massachusetts is one of the most unfriendly states in the union toward gun owners and the Second Amendment. And the rules and regulations in that state make gun ownership almost impossible. The Smith and Wesson came out and said that they are moving due to the changing business climate for firearms manufacturing in Massachusetts. They released in their PR statement, which can be viewed on PR Newswire. This has been an extremely difficult and emotional decision for us, but after an exhaustive and thorough analysis for the continued health and strength of our iconic company, we feel that we have been left with no other alternative. He specifically cited legislation recently proposed in Massachusetts that, if enacted, would prohibit the company from manufacturing certain firearms in the state. These bills would prevent Smith and Wesson from manufacturing firearms that are legal in almost every state in America and that are safely used by tens of millions of law-abiding citizens every day exercising their constitutional Second Amendment rights, protecting themselves and their families, and enjoying shooting sports. While we are hopeful that this arbitrary and damaging legislation will be defeated in this session, these products made up over 60% of our revenue last year, and the unfortunate likelihood that such restrictions would be raised again led to a review of the best path forward for Smith and Wesson. It's just sad because we can see the cause and effect, and we can see the will of the people coming, because now Massachusetts is losing 750 jobs and losing a company that has been there since 1852. We'll keep you updated as more of these develop. Stay plugged in, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel.